For the average anime fan, One Piece seems like an insurmountable task. How can anyone find the time to watch a nearly 1,000 episode show, or even read a 1,000 chapter manga? Well, I did both. My first exposure to One Piece was when I was watching 4Kids. I loved Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Sonic X, and all the other shows that would air around the same time. One Piece never really seemed to attract my attention like those other shows. Of course, I enjoyed the now infamous One Piece rap, and it had been stuck in my head even into my adulthood. Besides that, all I could really remember was seeing Smoker and pieces of the Alabasta arc. Sanji's voice was also something that stuck in my head every time I thought about One Piece.
It'd be better if we split up, guys.
Good idea, Sanji!
After that short period of my life, I didn't think about the show again until high school. A few years ago, I went on Crunchyroll and decided to get started on this massive series. I was well acquainted with the fact that the 4Kids dub basically censored and changed everything about the show. I also knew that it was massively popular and that it was ridiculously long without an ending in sight. I don't remember what it was that made me want to start it. I think at the time they were promoting the Whole Cake Island arc and I saw Luffy fighting Sanji. That piqued my interest enough to consider the series, but I had been putting it off for the longest time because of its sheer length. That's typically the reason anyone puts off this series. It seems like so much time to invest in one thing. It really had to impress me to get me to stick to it. At first I enjoyed the series for what it was. To me, it seemed like any other shonen. We had a goofy protagonist who had his mind set on a goal and wasn't going to let anyone get in his way. Along his journey, he would befriend a large cast of characters with their own unique personalities and abilities. It's a formula that I grew up with and I knew I loved. Unfortunately, with One Piece being such a big series, I wasn't able to avoid spoilers. I had seen images of important events that happened later in the story, so the whole time I watched, I was just waiting for those things to happen. It wasn't until Arlong Park that the series really grabbed me. This is where I could tell this series was going to be unlike anything I've ever watched. This excitement ended up taking me all the way up to Thriller Bark before I started to feel the burnout setting in. Long Ring Long Land was kind of the starting point for this, but it was Thriller Bark that made me sit down and realize one of my many issues with the One Piece anime. Particularly, the pacing. As a longtime anime viewer, specifically a shonen viewer, I never really noticed this issue. I was used to long drawn-out scenes of characters staring each other down. I was used to action scenes being repeated over and over again. I just thought that's how anime was. It was something I could ignore because I never tried to watch this many episodes of any anime at once. I would always either catch things on TV or watch a few episodes of a show. I try to pace myself normally, but with One Piece I was so determined to catch up that I never gave myself a proper break. I was consuming hours of content every single day, just pure One Piece from the time I got out of school to the time I went to sleep. One Piece also had this bad habit of recapping large portions of previous episodes. Sometimes, a 23-minute episode would really only have around 12 minutes of new footage. The openings were usually around 2 to 3 minutes, with the endings being about the same. We had episode recaps as well as previews for the next episode. It was something that genuinely started to hurt my enjoyment. I had to take long breaks from the show before I was able to make it to the New World section of the show. Once I hit the Dressrosa arc, I couldn't do it anymore. Episodes were dragging so much, and with Dressrosa being one of the longest arcs in the series, I felt like I was never going to be able to get through it. Eventually, this made me drop the series entirely. I still loved it. I mean, I'd spent all the time with these characters in this world. Of course, I would still care about it, but I was officially done. I would unsuccessfully try to jump back into the show, but it wasn't until 2019 that I officially came back to it. The manga is what really saved the series for me. In 2019, I found the colored manga, and this is what changed everything for me. One of my biggest hangups about the manga was the fact that it was in black and white. One Piece has such a colorful and interesting world, not to mention watching the anime kind of spoiled me. With the colored manga, I was willing to give it another shot, and I'm so glad I did. The manga instantly became my favorite way to enjoy the series. The pace of the series was perfect. There weren't long drawn out scenes, and every moment mattered. I was able to take in the series at whatever speed I wanted. I could blaze through chapters or relax and soak in all the great art. I didn't have to worry about any filler either. Before I knew it, I had caught up and become a weekly reader. I do want to give the anime the credit it deserves though. It may suffer from many issues, but it's still what brought me into the series. I don't think I could enjoy the manga as much as I did if I couldn't hear the Japanese voice actors in my head while I read it. The casting for everyone was perfect, and the sound effects and music always play in my head when I'm reading. The anime definitely has its own merits, and I think it's worth at least watching the most impactful scenes after you've caught up to the manga. I really believe that the anime can elevate those emotional scenes to another level. I've never cried this much to any other anime.
私も一緒に海へ連れてって
Some of the additional scenes and interactions that the anime adds really helps to flesh out the relationship of the crew, which is really key to this series. We get to see moments that weren't in the manga. Of course, from the manga, you have to jump from important story event to important story event. We do get some downtime, but I do feel like a lot of what the anime adds really makes this crew feel like a family. I think the biggest reason anyone sticks to this series is the characters. By the time you catch up to the series, you will absolutely love every single character. Even if you start off hating someone, you'll eventually learn to love them. It's rare that a character is just irredeemably bad. Most of the characters have lots of nuance and depth that make them more than just the standard good or bad guys. The characters in One Piece are genuinely interesting and charming. They all have their own backstories that we get to learn about to help us better understand them. The main crew especially gets a lot of love in this department. They all have their part to play and no one feels like they shouldn't be here. Their dynamic is so perfect. They feel like a genuine family, even though they're all so different. And it's because we get to learn about their tragic past that we really become attached to them. It's easy to relate and sympathize with any member of the crew. Even seemingly small characters or side characters that join the crew for an arc make a place in your heart. The best part is, once you meet a character, there's a good chance they'll come back later. Almost everything that happens in One Piece matters. Oda has everything meticulously planned, and he loves to leave seeds throughout the series. It feels like every character in this series knows someone in this world. You won't understand how important they are to this world until much later. One Piece's world is unlike any other. It feels like it really exists because everything in this story is so well thought out. Every character has a history in this world. They all have different connections to each other and the larger world around them. As you read further into the series, this becomes much clearer. It's even more rewarding when you go back and reread it, only to realize that major characters or events were foreshadowed hundreds of chapters earlier. Each location that our crew travels to has its own unique way that their society functions. There's different cultures and civilizations with rich backstories, just like the real world. You could realistically make a whole series based on any one of the locations we see in the series. Seriously, we have an entire desert kingdom with a shadowy organization causing a civil war to start brewing, or a sky island being tormented by a god living on a piece of floating earth, or an underwater city populated by mermaids and fishmen. Every time we get to a new place, we get to see just how big this world really is. No matter how different every kingdom is, they never feel like they're out of place. This is a world filled with pirates, cyborgs, zombies, giants, and fish people. It doesn't make sense that these drastically different things could work together, but they just do. Oda makes everything tie together and make real sense in One Piece. It's unbelievable that not only does he make all those different sized pieces fit together, but that he's able to keep track of it all. As I said earlier, Oda loves to set things up in advance. How the story makes more sense the more you reread it seems almost impossible for a series that has been serialized for as long as this one has. The amount of planning it probably took to pull this off is crazy, especially when we've seen other long-running shonen struggle with this very same thing. While other series have to either retcon things or introduce new elements seemingly out of nowhere, One Piece never feels like it made something up on the spot. One Piece has heart unlike any other. Through all of its elements, it's able to connect with you on a deeper level. No matter who you are, there's a story here that will resonate with you. The series focuses on people's differences and how they all matter regardless of who they are. Oda clearly has a message he wants to convey, and it's always done beautifully. It's a series that makes you fall in love with its cast and the world. To me, this series went from being a by-the-book shonen that I didn't have too much interest in to one of my favorite pieces of media. I still find myself crying to scenes I've seen 100 times. Nothing else has the same impact on me that One Piece has. I can say with 100% certainty that One Piece has changed my life. It's taught me lessons that will stick with me for the rest of my life, and it's shown me just how powerful stories can be. The best part is that it's still not over. There are more adventures to be had and more stories to be told. I'm happy that I can be part of this community and that I get to see how this story will eventually end. I know that even when it's over, it'll always be something that I can come back to and find something new in. I hope that you'll give this story a chance, and that you'll get to experience it for yourself.